Mickey Hart here, you're listening to the GAA Hour Football Show.
The GAA Hour with Colm Parkinson is brought to you by Paddy Power, home of the Money Back Special.
I'm not finished yet, it took me a long time to get here.
Okay, so Michael Murphy, we talked about him on Monday's show. Conan and Stevie are here with me. And Conan, I was talking to you about this morning and you spotted it and didn't bring it up on Monday's show. So the poor fella's taken a penalty, a clutch penalty, a really important part of the game. And about 30 stewards are strolling into their positions in Croke Park. I didn't spot this at the time. I'm surprised Michael Murphy took the penalty while this was going on. Maybe he was just so bloody focused on that bottom left corner he didn't even notice them. But like, you see a golfer lining up to a tee shot and he's the least bit of noise and they're coming back, or the wind blows and they walk back, go through the routine again and address the ball again. And Michael Murphy, those stewards should all be disciplined for that, because that's common sense. Jesus, stop and wait. Stop and wait.
Yeah, but a lot of the stewards probably on duty aren't football people, you know. They probably don't even follow sport, or they're there to do a job and that's it. And I noticed it at the time, so did, and I thought, geez, he's a brave man actually striking the ball. But then when you think, as a penalty taker, you want to get it over and done with. You don't want to be hanging around.
Yeah.
You don't want to be wasting time.
Well, that's another part of it, yeah.
Other maybe doubts start filtering into your mind as well. But what a penalty given the circumstances. And, you know, there's no doubt, you know, yes, he's probably fully focused on putting the ball exactly into the bottom left-hand corner where he did put it. But in the corner of his eye, he had to have seen those stewards walking. Had to.
Because it's an unusual thing to be happening. It's only for 2 minutes in the game when they're called. You know what I mean? At that point, whereas 50 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, whenever it is.
End of match positions.
Match positions, and they all come strolling around. But not when a penalty's been taken. Like,
they're all wearing luminous orange coats as well, because it was pissing there at the time, like, and they were just really making their march as he was running up. It is like, I probably would have stopped, but that would have put more pressure on him.
Yeah, I think more doubts start creeping into your mind, and you know, maybe you change your mind instead of going bottom left. Go top right or bottom right, and then you don't know what to do. You're in two minds in the run up.
You know, I was talking about this on Monday. You know, you've taken penalties. Isn't the bottom left the clutch position for a right-footed taker? That when you're under most pressure, that's your go-to penalty, right?
Yeah, you would always fancy your chances coming across your body, and same with the left footer, he would go bottom right. Yeah, so he would. So probably.
Why don't goalies predict that a bit more? Because it is always that corner that they go.
Yeah,
for.
but if you hit it as well as what Michael Murphy did again, you know, you're still going to have no chance anyway. So, but it would be the more likely penalty that most penalty takers would opt with.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Right, so I was looking at on Facebook last night, and I saw a Sky Sports tweet, or it was a tweet or a Facebook post or whatever, and it was weekend talking points. And their first one was move Super 8s out of Croke Park. And I was thinking, how the hell is that a talking point from the weekend? And who's even saying this? And it was Kieran Whelan that said something about taking the neutral game out of Croke Park from the Super 8s. And immediately what jumped into my mind is Kieran Whelan will be better in line moving Dublin's home game out of Croke Park than moving the neutral game for everybody else out of Croke Park. I don't see this being a big deal. I remember the first round last year, and I see the benefit obviously of moving the neutral game into provincial venues, and there's a great thing that goes with that. But we have the provincial venues in the Super 8s. When would we use Croke Park, lads? Like, it's a national stadium, and we'd only ever use it then for Leinster final, All-Ireland semi-finals and a final. What a waste.
Yeah,
if you can't do double-header Super 8s there, when can you do it?
Yeah, I always go back to the point, as a player, you want to play in Croke Park. You always dream about playing in Croke Park.
Yeah.
And the more often you get the chance to play there, you should be playing there. And I think the attendance with the double-header at the weekend, Kerry and Donegal game was almost 50,000. So why not take games like that to Croke Park? Why not? It's an ideal opportunity. And definitely, you know, if those players have any doubts about going to Croke Park and play, then they need their head examined, because that's the place where you want to perform in.
I think so. I see the point they're trying to make, but it's not fair. It's not for All-Ireland quarterfinals, I don't think. Plus, if Donegal play Kerry there next year, there'll be a hell of a lot more than 48,000, because they know they're going to see drama and see teams going to win.
Football,
I genuinely think that the tactics, like, the amount of times I hear it, and this isn't just banging a drum, it's true. The amount of people that say to me Gaelic football is shite. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you saw Kerry play Donegal next year, there'd be 10,000 more. The year after then, the same two teams, you'd be like, well, I'm going to that. Neutrals will go, because you're going to see scores, you're going to see man on man.
There's no way it's shite, because you got 120 to 120 in one particular game. I know they're two high quality, in general,
the attendances are down because people can't trust the game will be entertaining. That's the truth.
You know, the reality is, I do think most games have been entertaining. So there's different ways of entertaining a supporter and a fan. So there is, and I think, you know, the majority of teams go out to put in performances, and it might be a defensive way, or it might be an attacking way, but you know, coming from a coaching aspect and a managerial aspect, you know, you want to look and learn from things you got there.
But the point I'm making is that's fine from you. You'd see yourself as an ex-player and a student of the game. The general GA fan is not interested in those defensive games.
Yeah.
They're not.
Well,
they're just not.
I think in this case, though, it's probably the format. Like, you know, you get to the quarterfinals and then suddenly the fever dies down a bit because there's 3 games and it's not knockout anymore. If that Donegal Kerry game was knockout, then next year you'd have probably nearly a sellout if you were told next quarter-final and one of these teams is going out.
Yeah.
But like, we went to that game and neither team is out now and both teams might go through. Do you know what I mean? So that sort of plays into it a little bit as well.
It does a little bit. But do you take the point that a lot more neutrals will go to an that they think is going to be a game like Kerry-Donegal? Do you know what I mean? Do you not think people are just going to roll up? I do think the attendances have been affected by that. The atmosphere with 50,000... There was only 50,000 there, but the atmosphere for that Kerry-Donegal game was fantastic because they had so much to cheer about.
Brilliant.
You know,
absolutely, it would attract neutrals all over the show. When you've got a rivalry like that, there are 2 teams that are going to go toe to toe with each other throughout the game. Then you're going to have neutrals coming from all over the country, and it brings me back to the rivalry that we had with Tyrone in the mid-noughties. You know, they brought Ulster finals to Croke Park simply because it gave everyone else in the country an opportunity to go and support and be part of the occasion as well.
But they were good games too, though. Like, I mean, you have to remember, say your All-Ireland final against them, the first one, that was a crappy game. If you played 3 more of those, you wouldn't be getting 70, 80,000. You would be people wouldn't be bothered. They'd be saying, they're crappy enough games. But you played out classics with them, so people wanted to see these classics.
Exactly,
So I definitely think the style of play, if it turns back around, this whole thing about Croke Park not getting attendances, it's not the Super 8s. I do take your point a little bit, maybe the Super 8 format, but I do think it has been potentially the way teams have been going about games. Just mentioning the Super 8s, because Eamon Fitzmaurice was on the Sunday game and I saw a clip on Twitter about this. He was talking about playing 2 weeks in a row is severe for amateur players. And I was like, Jesus, Eamon, like, I mean, calm down. I think Eamon was thinking it's severe for managers, but didn't want to whinge about managements having to turn around for another game and say he used the players to fight maybe the battle. He was thinking this is a bit much. Because Stephen O'Brien completely disagrees. He says games are brilliant, and that's the feedback from all the surveys done with players. We want less training and more games, so it gives you great context for training and improving. So, like, I mean, the Super 8s are 3 games in 4 weeks. That is not an over-the-top schedule for anyone.
Certainly not. Maybe you look at Cork scenario over the last couple of weeks, and they have performed extremely well, but they've travelled a queer distance for their 2 games to date so far. But they're getting to play in headquarters. You know, I don't buy into that at all.
Yeah.
Sure, you're playing club football, you're playing week on week. You know,
you want that. The argument is that if you come through qualifiers now, so Mayo and Cork Mayo and Tyrone are on 5 weeks in a row. If they win next week, they'll be on 6 weeks, or they'll be on 6 games in 7 weeks. And if they get into a semi-finalist the week after, that would be 7 games in 8 weeks. That's too much.
But I think
that
has served Tyrone well in the past. You know, momentum bees with them, and they always seem to, I suppose, be able to gel more as a team and as a unit and perform better the more consistently they are playing with each other. And I think has definitely served them well in the past 10 years or so, and that's why they are consistently getting to the knockout stages.
Yeah, I don't know though, but the 7 games in 8 weeks. That's too much of a schedule of that high intensity.
Maybe Eamon's thinking from a managerial point of view, you know, obviously injuries and getting players back onto the field.
Well, that's another point. We see that with Mayo, you can't clear them up. Now they're hoping that the 2 weeks might clear them up. But you remember you're playing championship, right? You're consumed by it. And back when we were playing, there'd be 3 weeks maybe in before matches and stuff. Like that week after a match, you go training Tuesday and you're taking it easy and you're building back up slowly. It's all changing out. 7 games in 8 weeks. Like, I think even mentally, you'd be just completely. You'd be how to keep it going. I don't know. Like, that's at a level of professionalism.
Yeah, I think was Keane making the point a couple of weeks ago that he would have rather have Kerry's route into the Super 8s, where you got the 3 weeks to sort of prepare for a game, and like especially then if the semi-finals where there should be a gap between the quarters and semi, because then you can just focus on one team, get your break, and then start building it back up again, knowing who you're marking, knowing what you're setting up, preparing for one match. And Eamon Fitzmaurice probably doesn't like it, because he's so many games to watch then, on a Sunday night and try and get ready for training the next day.
I think it gives Dublin and Tyrone a huge advantage going into the last Super 8 game, knowing they're through. And let's be honest, does it make any difference playing Kerry, Donegal or Mayo?
No.
Not really. So it's not like they say we have to be top to avoid them until the final. They don't care. Dublin and Tyrone will play bogey teams, I'm sure, and they're looking at a semi-final now. So they've got a 2-week run into a semi-final where Donegal, Mayo and Kerry can't afford that. They have to hit that last game hard.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Dublin and Tyrone in the final for that reason.
Quite possibly, yeah.
I'd just like to see something a bit different.
Well, yeah. Well, Tyrone might give us something different. Yeah, so we'd be seeing
Matty, I forgot about Big Matty.
We'd be seeing Tyrone this, but I think the Tyrone, it's a pity the Tyrone Dublin game in Oma is just going to be a dead duck. It's actually just going to be a dead duck because they're going to be. We're both in the semi-finals, so that's a pity. Mickey Hart has been talking about the fatigue, and he says we're 5 weeks on the road now, and maybe people are a wee bit fatigued. 5 weeks on the road is a right slog for amateur players, and it's trying to get themselves recovered in a few days and then prepared in another few is a tough ask. It does take its toll, and a lot of travel has been involved in that also. Lads, it's a slog. It's a huge slog.
It is a slog.
You're getting till Wednesday recovering, and then you're getting just Wednesday to the match, preparing for a massive knockout championship game. And okay, Super 8s aren't knockout, but they're as good as, because if you lose one, you're under a lot of pressure.
Well, you think of it like this. You put yourself in Cal McShane's boots, for instance. Okay, if Mickey Hart decides not to play Cal McShane, to rest him in the next game, is that taking away his chances and opportunity of maybe a potential all-star as well? As a player, you want to be playing.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. Look, but I think if you've 2 weeks to an All-Ireland semi-final, I'd take that week off. I'd be happy to take that week off.
Yeah,
I think McShane is very close to it. If McShane plays well in that semi-final, he's nailed on.
Yeah, you would think so, but you still want to play. You want to keep performing when you're at your maximum, and he is playing extremely well. He's a great target man now, and scoring consistently for them as well. So you want to keep that run of form going, and you want to really play in every game. And I'm only putting myself, if I was in his scenario, would I want to rest?
Take the week off. You would.
I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe I was a greedy bollocks. I wanted to play every game, and that was it.
Yeah, but you wanted to play every game with a 3-week break in between. Put yourself in their shoes now. You'd take the week off, Stevie. Think about it. You would. Come on. But anyways, Alan Brogan has been talking about, and the Herald, I was just reading it this morning, and maybe I thought it was an interesting enough comment in that he says the problem with he's talking about training camps, and he's talking about being a player at this time of year. And Alan didn't even play Super 8, so he's thinking of maybe even back when we were playing, when you had the 2 or 3 week gaps. So now it's just been cranked up to a level, coming through qualifiers, playing Super 8s, playing 7 of 8 weekends, and it's just massive. But he was saying he was talking about training camps and becoming absorbed in the squad and it taking over your life and everything. And he was saying the problem with training camp is you're taking up a free weekend from players who have put a huge amount of time and headspace into the season so far. Are you overloading fellas with a full weekend of work after a hectic last few weeks? Now this is, like, I'm thinking now this about a team right now going on the training camp now before even an All-Ireland final, right after coming out of the schedule that they're in. And this is Alan talking again, I'll say a couple of years about when he was playing 3 or 4 years ago. He said it might only be in Carton House or somewhere similar close to home, but if you're coming from work on a Friday and leaving on a Sunday and then straight back into work on the Monday, it doesn't really feel like any sort of a break. So it's like, how am I getting away from this at all, So a team who comes through, say it's Tyrone, comes through to the All-Ireland final, so they've played 7 in 8 weeks, they're through, and then they have a 3-week break, and I'm sure they'll head away for a 2-weekend training camp. It's like, holy shit, I don't know how these lads are doing it, lads. Honestly, I think we should step back for a second sometimes and just think about what these lads are doing and sacrificing for pretty much the whole country's enjoyment during the summer. It's true though.
And then all we do is complain
and
about it.
And then you give out and then you complain. And I don't mind complaining or criticising a performance, but it always has to remind yourself what they're actually doing.
Yeah, I think it's the timing of training camps. Training camps in our day was pre-championship, and you went and done it. You didn't really get the opportunity to go, for a collective training camp mid-season, particularly in the middle of the championship season. But the further you went in the championship, you're always dragged away weekends away. So that doesn't change. You weren't probably training as consistently as what the players are now, but you were still being dragged away from your own family life. And maybe that's the point that Alan's trying to make here as well. There has to be a happy medium between family life and your sporting life as well. And when there is a chance there for players to spend a couple of days with their kids or with their wives or girlfriends, whatever it may be, give them that opportunity, because sometimes that refreshes the body and mind more so than anything else as well.
Now, I do appreciate there's club players around the country listening to podcasts going, you, what an asshole, I'd do that, no problem.
Yeah, I was just thinking
but
that.
you'll do it if that's grand. And look, I often, you see Premier League soccer players complaining about, and what was the big one? Stephen Hunt complaining about the rest. And we were like, oh my God, and I only love to sit on the couch and watch telly. But when you're in it, you don't know until you're in it. And then,
Yeah, because I was just thinking about even the amount of work club players do. They're not going to training camps every weekend and playing 7 games in 8 weeks, certainly not. But like my club in Derry back home, I remember the stage we were training on a Wednesday at 6:30 in the morning and training again on Wednesday night. And you were doing like 3-4 times a week, and you were going in the morning sometimes to get extra sessions in. That's just to try and win a senior championship match and then lose the next round. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so it's mad. Like, and it probably does get easier when you're Tyrone, and then you get to a semi-final and then a final. You start getting better goals and
no, it's true. Well, like, that's way over the top for club players anyways. I think that's outrageous, training club players twice a week. But anyways, we'll wait for
twice a day.
We'll wait twice a day. We'll wait for club season to start giving out about that kind of stuff. So Cillian O'Connor, I don't know whether to believe him. I actually do believe him a little bit. He said he didn't realise he was breaking the all-time scoring record in the history of the GAA, and he didn't know that point he kicked against Kerry broke the record. So he said genuinely, and there's a lovely bit in this about Seamus O'Shea. He says, genuinely, I didn't even know that one. I didn't even know what one it was, I swear. We were getting beaten. I was trying to get the ball over the bar as quick as I could. Seamus O'Shea was shouting at me to hurry up. We were setting up for the kick out. The game is going 100 miles an hour. You're not thinking about stuff like that. So I don't know anything about breaking records. 2 or 3 points is my maximum in a game. Stevie, you think he's... I love the way Seamus O'Shea... Seamus O'Shea definitely didn't know that was the record. Will you hurry on?
Yeah, well... There was a lot in the media.
There was
in the lead up to that game, but I would say, when you're in that environment, you probably don't read things as much. And I would actually tend to believe Cillian O'Connor, to be honest. I think he's an honest type of character anyway, and I would say, he knew that he was up close enough to the top, but he didn't probably realise or understand how close he was to the top, and definitely. A large part of me thinks that he's telling the truth in that one,
No, I definitely think. I'm tend to agree with him as well. But you always remember what you're scoring in the game, right? So, I mean, I've never lost count of what I've scored in the game. Obviously, because I can. They're on one hand. But I'd be thinking during the game, geez, I'm on 3 here now. Wouldn't mind getting another one. That would move me up to 4. Would you be thinking like this during a match?
Listen, your job as a forward, I keep saying this, if you're wearing number 10 to 15 in the team, your primary responsibility is to get scores for the team, and you want to get as many scores as possible, and yes, there has to be an element of greed comes into that there. So you always be thinking, if I can, if you have 4 points, I want to get the 5, I want to get the 6, I want to get the 7, I want to score as much as possible, and gives your team a greater chance of winning the game then if you're doing your job.
But it would be always in your head what you've scored or what you're on.
Always in your head, but. In saying that, when I retired, I remember Paddy O'Nugent, who was the county secretary at the time. I contacted him. I said, listen, do you keep a record of the scoring stats? And he did, and he was able to notify me of what I scored throughout my career, league and championship. And it wasn't until my career was finished that I actually started worried myself about that there, wondered what it was, the total. So maybe Cillian O'Connor's in the same scenario as well.
Yeah, maybe, geez, if you're 4 off and you're on 4 in the game, I don't know how he didn't know this is to break it.
Yeah.
Like the focus must be incredible.
Because I was thinking, geez, he might miss this. The nerves, this is the one.
Because it was an easy one.
Yeah, and the cheer was big, because everybody else obviously knew it. And there's a clip going around of that, and you can see Seamus sort of.
Is that right?
He
really?
wants to sort of take a quick free almost initially, and then Cillian comes walking out and takes it.
I remember a game that we played in. It was the Ulster final against Tyrone, and Oisin McConville had a free to become the Ulster all-time leading scorer at that time. But he knew at the time. He there's no doubt. Oisin knew. Oisin was that arrogant, cocky anyway. But he knew that free was going to kick. I suppose put him into the lead. And Oisin just slotted over, no problem at all.
As a matter of interest, would you have said that to him in the lead up to it?
No,
you could break
he
the
wouldn't
record?
have said it. No, there was publicity about it as well in the build up, but he obviously read it somewhere, so he did. But he definitely knew about it.
Yeah, it'd be impossible not to. But anyways, Cillian O'Connor was also quoted, and we were talking here on Monday. Like, I'd say Mayo just can't believe their luck. They've an All-Ireland quarter final, which this is, and it's at home. What a brilliant position for them to be in. He says, we can't wait for 2 weeks' time. It's fantastic to be welcoming a team of Donegal's quality to Castlebar. That's exactly why you play the game. The lads can't wait for it. So it was just that line, the lads can't wait for it. It's just the psychology of it. Now, we have we've got our home game to get into a semi-final. I think they're definitely outsiders. It could be 8 to 15 outsiders. I need to check Paddy Powers for that. And they have, it looks like James Horan was asked what the chances of Diarmuid O'Connor, Paddy Durcan and Matthew Ruan being fit to line out against Donegal, and he says it's tight but it's looking positive. A lot can happen in 2 weeks, and suddenly Mayo have a huge like Diarmuid O'Connor, it was his wrist, right? So he's flying fit, he's been doing all the training, so he can hit the ground completely running. Durcan, it was his thigh, he has 3 weeks if it's positive about him. What did Ruan do again? I can't remember what he did. I think it was a leg injury.
So he might hamstring, maybe. I'm not sure.
It was a bit long for a hamstring. I think it was more than that. But he might not have the same fitness level as.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for Mayo, isn't it? Yeah, and you look back within the last month, they've certainly rode their luck a bit in terms of some of the games that they've come through. The Armagh game, they were very lucky. Armagh had opportunities to beat them down, caused them serious problems in Uri as well. But, Mayo have got stronger and stronger as the campaign has gone on as well. And, for a 5-minute spell last week against Meath, they just blitzed them, so it was done and dusted. And they find themselves now in a real opportunity in McHale Park, one of the biggest stands in the country, and it's going to be full to capacity against a Donegal team who they have built up a great rivalry with in the last 7-8 years. So it's going to be something that it'll be an epic match, and it'll be a game that both teams will go into feeling very, very confident about.
Yeah, looking forward to really. Were you looking to see what happened with Ruan here?
Broken collarbone.
A broken collarbone. So he's
nowhere near his hamstring now.
So he's running as well. So he's going to be in. Maybe I'm not sure.
Well,
I've never done my collarbone. You wouldn't be running too much.
No. Hamstring would be affected now by a broken collarbone.
They're all linked, right? I have a sore toe. Well, that's your neck. Right. So you mentioned the Mayo Donegal rivalry, and there absolutely is a rivalry there. Yeah. We're going to Westport. We're going back to Westport next Thursday night to do a live show before this Mayo Donegal game. So we're very excited about that. We have Rory Gallagher confirmed, and Rory Gallagher is a huge part of that rivalry because he said some absolute classics in 2013. He said that Mayo were colluding with Monaghan to help Monaghan beat them in the Ulster final. He said that James Horan follows a predetermined script, that Kieran Shannon, who is their sports psychologist, he's also a journalist with the Examiner, that he writes James Horan's scripts. So James Horan, when they beat them in 2013, was interviewed after that one. He says, look, I can't talk because my sports psychologist isn't here yet to tell me what to say. McGuinness was asked about what Rory Gallagher said, and McGuinness, with a tick face on him, says, you'll have to ask Rory about that one. So McGuinness said he wasn't happy at all with Rory Gallagher coming out accusing Mayo of colluding with Monaghan before. Do you remember Monaghan beat Donegal the year after, and then Mayo destroyed them in the final. Apparently there was a famous challenge. There was a challenge game where both counties got on fairly well, and then they had this challenge game, which as challenge games go, Stevie, there could be one big hit, and then it kind of goes from being a nice challenge game feel to bloody, and then it escalates. And Jesus, tensions were very bad in 2013. I remember, between the two counties.
Yeah, and it certainly whets the appetite for the game in 2 weeks' time. So it does. I'm looking forward to it, but I still believe that Mayo will have to have all their top players on the field if they're going to have a chance. Even though they've got home advantage, there's something about Donegal that I really, really like this year, and maybe it's the impact that Stephen Rochford has had in Donegal. But I know they're raving about him up there. But definitely, as a team, I think they're something special this year.
Yeah, no, definitely. Look, they're looking really good. So the lineup for the Westport show, we have a hurling show tomorrow night in Wexford, but I have the show already filled. I'm way ahead of myself here, lads. So Rory Gallagher, Mark McHugh and Alan Dillon are going to talk about that, pretty much mostly about that rivalry and everything that went along with it. And then we've Tony McEntee, who's going to maybe give us a little bit about Stephen Rochford, working with him, Kevin McStay, and we have Aidan O'Mahony, who's a Paddy Power ambassador, and he said a few nice little things about Mayo recently. He asked me, will there be a guard of protection unit brought to Westport with him?
Well, he can sort that out himself.
He can sort that out himself. Yeah, so that's it. So we'll be releasing tickets pretty soon, and keep your eye out for that. So we're back to Westport Oh, the venue. Where did we do it the last time?
I'm trying to remember. I can't remember, but I just remember Aidan O'Mahony was there the last time.
He was. It's the same venue we did at the last show anyways. It's the hotel there at the traffic lights. So that's all I have.
The traffic lights, you'll find it. We were having a few drinks afterwards, and O'Mahony was getting a bit annoyed because people were coming up to him. He said they used to come up to him and talk to him about games and All-Stars. He said now people are coming up to him and talking to him about Strictly Come Dancing.
Right, okay, listen, we'll leave it there. We'll come back and we'll have a few more talking points for you. The Castle Court Hotel, that was the bloody hotel I was trying to think of just before the break. So that's where we're going to be on tomorrow week. Cork's improvement, lads, I have down here, because I was reading just on the report from the match. There was 14 of the players who featured in the 320-13 hammering last year against Tyrone played again this week and could easily have beaten Tyrone only for the start of the second half, and then you thought maybe Tyrone could have pushed on and beaten them well, but Cork stuck in there. It's just an incredible turnaround in 12 months that 14 of those players hasn't come in, made wholesale changes, all the same lads. And I'm wondering what you'd be putting this down to. And it's well publicised that the players had a players' meeting after the league, that they went defensively during the league, played defensive football, got relegated. Didn't suit Cork. It's not Cork's style. No. It's either for you or it's not, and it wasn't for Cork. Cork's forwards are too good to be doing that kind of donkey work, and I don't think they've the appetite for it. It's just not suited for it. But it took a players' meeting, and then it made me think about players taking control of this, and the motivation that players have. If it's your idea, you're going to work harder to make it work than you will if this is forced upon you. You know what I mean? And I'm wondering how much input. Well, famously last year, the Clare hurlers, the Clare management told, or maybe told me on the show, but definitely said it, that the players were taking ownership of the game plan. Which, I don't know. I don't know which way to come down on this. You don't want to give them too much say. You have to have, you're the manager. So, you have to have enough confidence. But I really like the idea of giving the players enough of an ownership of it for them to make it make them want to make it work.
Yeah, listen, I think common sense prevails nowadays when you're managing teams and groups of players. From coaching and management points of view, it's great to see players actually take control of situations like that. But probably, there has to be a level playing field as well. The management have to control things as much as possible as well, with giving the players or making the players believe that they have their full say on how to play. But definitely, if it was a players meeting that determined that they didn't any longer want to play a defensive style of football and they've gone back to their traditional Cork style of football, which suits the players that they have, then it's working well, and you have to give them credit for it. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think on the players taking ownership, I think a manager coming in his first year can't give that over. Then you look weak, right? And this in the Clare example and in this Cork example, it's been in year 2. So you'll review year 1, and maybe you'll say, "What did you think, lads?" Yeah. And then you take feedback, and then you maybe see, because like we always say, you've 15 players on the field and more coming on as subs. You could have 5 of them brilliant analysts of the game. Take on what they're saying. They're seeing what's going on the field better than you are. Yeah, and it is, in fairness, it's very big of the management team then to take it on board, because normally, a lot of cases it would just be like, no, this is what we're doing and I'm in charge, and you don't want to lose that power. But if there was a meeting called, then it is good, to sort of hear both sides of the coin. I think this was a players. I'm not sure whether management were even asked into this. It's sort of a bit different. If instead of at the start of year 2 sitting down everybody together, what do you think we did wrong last year, or whatever, and then coming up with a plan. But the players calling it maybe mid-season makes it a little bit different. That's a little bit different. Yeah. What has to happen is the management team go away then and come back maybe with a new proposal then or something, because they can't. And I don't know what the players sort of proposed, but I'm sure some of it might have been a bit too gung-ho, or and the management team would have said, right, well, we still need Matty Taylor staying here for whatever reason, and then sort of bring back something else that the players might say, yeah, we can get on board with that. Yeah. And then, as you said, then they've agreed to it, so it's like, well, go and do it. It's sort of on your head a bit now. And I'm not sure, players can't call tactics, and we're not saying, but
I do take your point. Maybe players wanted a really attacking game plan and Ronan McCarthy refined it. But what we can agree on is that the players wanted rid of this defensive game.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I remember for a county final with Portlaoise, it was 2007. We hadn't won it in 2 or 3 years, and we're playing Stradbally in the final. And Stradbally played Eamon Delaney as a sweeper. And Eamon was pushing on in his career, and he never really liked marking his man too much anyway. He was a very good player. But as he was moved into his 30s then, the sweeping role suited him down to the ground because he was intelligent and he was smart. And I begged Kevin Fitzpatrick's father was a selector. I begged Kevin, please ask your father to put Zach, we'd Zach Toohey wing back, to put Zach Toohey up on him. Please. I tormented him about it. And on the morning of the match, the manager says, we're going to put Zach up on him. And I was, thank God. Zach destroyed him. Yeah. And we had no sweeper to deal with. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Players can help.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But a critical element of coaching when you go into a team is identify the players that you have. Look at their strengths. And if their strengths is more geared towards an attacking system, it's a waste of time implementing a defensive system into that team then. Absolute waste of time, because it's going against, what they're going to really add to the team and to winning and getting results.
Yeah, there also might be something as simple as like somebody saying, lads, I've never seen Rory Dean lose a kick out, for example, but we never have a structure around trying to get him the ball. Do you know? And it might just be something like that a player has noticed. But the tactic is going to the other side of the pitch or something. You know? So it can be very helpful.
No, I think player feedback is massive. It's absolutely massive. And it definitely around breaking balls and all stuff like this, where I find that players are on top of that a little bit more. But Ronan McCarthy was quoted after the Tyrone game, and he's saying when the opposition is on top of you, I think he's talking about just after half time, when the opposition is on top of you, you go back to basics and you do those basics well. We didn't do that at times. I don't want to be overly critical of the players. They're a marvellous group of players. Tyrone are obviously a very experienced side, a top side, and when they were going to have a period of dominance, and they were always going to have a period of dominance, what proved critical from our point of view was that we conceded so much so quickly. We went from 6 up to 2 down in the space of 4 minutes.
Yeah.
That was outrageous. That was 2-2 game, gone, did nothing to defend. And we know Tyrone, if they were behind, might have started panicking because they don't like chasing a game. But I was just wondering what your tactics for slowing the momentum down. If that was against Armagh, the oldest trick in the book is somebody to go down injured and break that up. But did you have set plans for that to happen, or do players just individually, would McGeaney just know in his own head and say, maybe I'll go down here because this is...
You always have probably the more experienced leaders on the team that will take ownership of that there and maybe see an opportunity to, I suppose, buy a bit of time. And it's something that we don't want to see. We've seen quite a bit of it in this year's championship. But
the head injury, I'm surprised Cork players should have been dropping down with concussion all over the field.
But maybe that was an ideal opportunity. If the shoe was on the other foot, you can be guaranteed that Tyrone would have been doing it. So that was probably an ideal opportunity for one of the Cork players to stand up and say, right, let's take the momentum away from Tyrone here a wee bit, slow it down, take a minute or two, I suppose, get ourselves reshaped and reorganised and go back at it.
Yeah. And so are we being hypocritical here for almost criticising Cork for not
there's an element of that there, absolutely. Yeah, you're going to get it in most games, so you are. But once there's too much of it, it's ridiculous, and that's why I always say, the stop clock would be brilliant in the men's game, because I think it takes away all the bullshit of overtime and
it wouldn't take away this now.
I understand that there, but a player does have to take responsibility on the field and try to regain momentum back towards their own team, and sometimes that might be going down, feigning an injury and taking a break and trying to get their team structure reorganised.
Have you ever done it?
No.
Never?
I've never done it, no.
Right.
No.
I've called for my inhaler a couple of times because I had asthma, and the referee would usually stop it for that. Just in a situation where a 1-1 maybe has gone in and you call for it. But it does make perfect sense, because if Cork had done that after that Matty Donnelly goal, and maybe that penalty might not have happened, because you need a chance after a goal. You're a little bit all over the place, right? So you need to, just that minute, calm down, talk to yourself. The sting has gone out of it. the crowd have settled down. It seems like just a normal game because when the goal goes in, the crowd's still going mad and it's all a little bit haywire for a minute.
But there's other ways of doing it, and probably goes against what we said a few minutes ago about Cork. But Cork could have overloaded their defence for that period of time, just weather the storm and then get themselves back into an attacking mindset and go at it again.
It's just very surprising because the week before they conceded 3-1 in 4 minutes against Dublin. So that's like 2 4-minute periods in 2 games, 10 points and 8 points. So
it's just think, a lack of concentration, maybe.
Yeah, this week, no matter, even if they had been like the biggest bollockses in the world, started a row or something, we would have said, well, in fairness, last week against Dublin they conceded 3-1 in 4 minutes, so you can see why they were slowing it down.
But like, I mean, here's the thing. Who does it? You know, who's the one that does it then? Is this talked about? Stevie says he never talked about it. I don't think we've ever talked about it as a manager. Maybe players might say, you know, you talk about it casually about stopping time if you concede a goal. Then who does it? Who takes ownership of that at a time when a goal has just gone in? It's not easy to remember, I'm sure, even on the field at that stage, that, Jesus, now I need to feign an injury. Or like the goalkeeper with the contact lenses is the one we always joke about.
But it has to be, like, that has to be the keeper. The goalie. Anytime they score 3 points in a row or they get a goal, then you something's happened to you. Or the fullback or something, that you can't kick the kick out anyway. Like, it has to be the goalie stopping the kick out going. And then when you do kick it, eventually it's going to just go long and down the pitch and relieve a bit of pressure.
Yeah, that is something that I would have done, would be stand in front of a kick out to try to slow momentum down. Definitely I would have done that in the past, but anything else, your mind doesn't be on thinking of things like that. I don't
very
believe,
difficult to think of that.
Yeah,
because you have enough in your head.
Exactly, you're trying to concentrate on your own performance first and foremost and trying to get the result for your team, so you probably don't be thinking, you know, right, I have to go down with a head injury here or an arm injury or something like that. Yeah, I think there's something wrong about that, but you know, Cork probably should have done it last week. You know,
the problem is that the keeper is being told to get the kick out away quickly. So even when the ball's going on, he's running back, getting the ball and trying to get it set up.
Well, that quick kick out completely goes against breaking momentum. It actually plays into your team's hands. You should be forgetting about a short kick out after a goal goes in. Forget about it. Your outfield players are all over the place.
Away.
And then we obviously have Eamon Fitzmaurice talking about the runner maybe getting in, slowing down a kick, you know what I mean, slowing it down or trying to maybe take a sting out of it or being told to get off the field. All these things are going on, you know.
Does somebody be detailed just to grab a man and fall to the ground with him? Like that's a very bad thing to be advocating for, but like, you know, just roll around the ground with somebody so then the ref has to stop.
I think we need to get off this topic as fast as possible.
Trying to best to get anything out of Stevie here. He's not biting at all.
No.
He's twitching there though. He likes something.
No, not twitching.
I can't believe I'm sitting in a studio with 2 Ulster players and I haven't got one admission of cynicism. So I was like,
says the leashman.
What are you talking about? What are you talking
One of the
about?
most cynical teams I ever come up against.
That's madness. We were naive.
Billy Sheehan was an angel. Absolutely angel.
Billy Sheehan was an exception to the rule. He's from Kerry. We know what they're like. All right. Tyrone lads have made history. So they're in the semi-final. And they're in the 5th semi-final this decade. And Mickey Hart was talking about this. They must have done it. I was after the game. He says, I think it's a first for Tyrone that we're in 3 All-Ireland semi-finals in a row. I don't think ever... Oh, that's in a row and 5 this decade. I don't think ever in our history we've done that before. So for a team that isn't thought of much in many circles, that's a good return. So I suppose he hasn't talked about the fact they've only won 1 of those 5. One of those 4. This will be the 5th. Yeah. But I did think... It was interesting saying a team that isn't thought much of in many circles. You know, like it's his own fault for the standards they've set themselves. They've 3 All-Irelands in the noughties. If this team came along before that team, this would be a fantastic Tyrone team that the county are very proud of. It's just it's the.
I think a lot of people still judge the current Tyrone team on the team of the noughties, and you know, there's a huge difference for me. In terms of the class of the players of the noughties compared to the team now, it's a fantastically, you know, competitive team and some brilliant individuals in it now, but their forward unit in the noughties was special, so it was, and I think that's the main difference between them getting to All-Ireland finals and winning in comparison to where they were at 10, 12 years ago, because you knew when they got to All-Ireland finals then they had the firepower up front to absolutely blitz teams.
That was the thing. So maybe, although you look at McShane and Donnelly, if they stay up front, and Sludden and Hart, it's not that bad of a front 4 if they played the front 4, you know, like, I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's the style just gets them bad press and they're not as
quite
universally
possibly
loved.
But then you compare those players with, Mulligan, O'Neill, Canavan, and
they were a freaky set of forwards. Yeah,
Brian McGuigan, probably one of the best playmakers of his era. Jared Cavlin, Brian Duher, class acts, all brilliant players, and players when things were going against them, one of them could really pull it out of the fire for them. So I'm not taking away from the Tyrone team. I think they're consistently very, very good, and the reason why they get the 5 semi-finals is because they know how to absolutely hammer a team when they get on top of them. But I think, and maybe I'm judging them on the players of the Naughties as well, but there is a difference in the gulf of class, particularly with the forwards.
It's interesting to have Mickey Hart admit that he knows they're not thought of, though. I still read that and went, geez, that was an interesting thing for him to say.
And also, it was only a couple of years ago, he was coming under a bit of pressure from some Tyrone fans as well, which I thought was a bit mad at the time, but they've gotten, this is their 5th semi-final this decade, but they've only won 3 Ulsters, but when you're getting to 5 semi-finals, you think you might win a few more Ulsters along the way as well.
Look, 3 out of 5 is not that bad.
No, but 3 out of 10 it is, so...
3 Ulsters out of 10.
People might be a bit frustrated
at
that. I don't know.
But
that's an era of Monaghan and Donegal.
In the Naughties, there's still only won 3 out of 10 as well.
Yeah, look, I'm not even criticising for it. I'm just trying to think why people might not be loving them as much. The football is probably a big part of it. But when you do break it down, they've only been put out of the championship in recent years by Kerry, Dublin or Mayo, so it's only the very best teams that are
able to
dumping
beat them
out.
Yep.
They're
close enough to that as well, yeah. So Mickey Hart also mentioned the Dublin game. So he says, we'll see how many people are fit for much more, or if some people need a rest. At least now the options are open to us. So here's my prediction. I know this is for next week's show in the preview show. Tyrone, second 15 men behind the ball. That's what they'll do. They'll play complete silly beggars altogether. It'll be a match like that will bear no resemblance on how Tyrone will line out against Dublin in the All-Ireland final, potentially, if they end up playing them.
That's an interesting one. But is there much of a secret? They do have to show their hand again there at the weekend. Is there much of a secret of how they will play
against Dublin?
Yeah,
maybe not, but still at the same time they're not going to play that against them the next day. There'll be little bits and pieces that they might do different, but maybe even personnel, Richie Donnelly might play in the All-Ireland final instead of Sludden in that creative role, because he gives lovely balls. You don't know, I'm just off the top of my head because you put me on the spot, but I do think that they'll just completely throw out that.
It would make sense, because Dublin would want to be prepared playing against Tyrone and try to now match up against them and see how we'll get on if we meet them in the final. And if Tyrone play that way, there's absolutely no chance for Dublin to get any look at them on the pitch up close.
Yeah, exactly. And they might not even bring in the pitch size in Oma. They might leave it the same size because it's a nothing game, or bring it in on one side. Stevie, that was yours. All right, we have a final one here, lads. Talking point, and this is changes to the starting 15. So I'm not sure who this pisses off. I know it pisses off journalists, and I know fans don't give a shit really about what pisses off journalists, to be honest. But I'm still think it should be annoying fans enough to complain about it, because they buy a programme, to spend €5, €6, whatever it is on the programme, and to see a team in it, and then they have to look at the team and see what's on the field, and it doesn't bear any resemblance to what they have on it. So we know that the rule is that a panel of 26 has to be sent into the GAA at 9 a.m. on Thursday morning. They have to do that. So they're just sending in any bogey team. Now, Dublin are notorious. Last week, Dublin announced their team an hour before throw-in, and there was 3 changes to it just before throw-in. What's the point of that? I wonder what benefit there is. They're all doing it. I think Dublin started it. I think every county copies the All-Ireland champions, so they're all doing it. James Horn made 3 changes. Declan Bonner made 3 changes. Kerry, in fairness, Eamon Fitzmaurice didn't do it that often. Peter Keane didn't do it until the Munster final, I think against Cork, and now he's doing it, made 3 changes. The last time, Kerry didn't release their subs. Donegal didn't release their subs. Dublin don't release their subs. They're all playing this silly beggars game, and because it's gone to the point of such silly beggars, who are they fooling? Because if James Horan sees the Donegal team now next week, is he going to pay a blind bit of interest in it? He's going to plan for him playing. They'll focus on their own game. So at this point now, while it might have worked at the start, and you're tricking him, saying, geez, well, they're playing him there, and then he doesn't. And surely now, that there's no benefit of doing this now. Only annoying people that supporters that have bought programs, and also affecting the build-up. I still think it makes a huge difference to the build-up, and newspapers, preview shows, everything, that you don't know the bloody team.
Yeah, I always enjoy reading the comments, particularly on social media, Facebook and Twitter, when a team is announced.
I love that. I love when a team is announced.
Sure, it's a waste of time. There's going to be 3-4 changes, and you're almost guaranteed with most managers nowadays that is going to be the case. The point that Declan Bonner makes here, which I do think is a ridiculous point, is, they have to name 26 players, which is fine. So 2 of his players got injured out at 26, and that therefore he was left at 24. Surely he should be able to draft 2 extra players in to the squad at that short notice. Well, it doesn't seem to be.
That was to stop them pulling lads in out of nowhere, and number 35. But this is the thing. But if they're releasing that on Thursday morning, like, they knew Paddy McGrath was out. Neil McGee got injured during the week. Why named him? Kerry named David Moran in the 26, knowing he wasn't playing, just to let him be on the team and try and let Donegal think. So that was their own fault. I don't know, did Donegal put him and McGee into it knowing, because I think he got the injury on the Monday night, Neil McGee. Yep. So they did the same thing. So don't whinge about it when you actually chose to do it.
But what we, as a manager though, you would probably do the same, right? It's not even about trying to trick them anymore. It's just so people don't know your team. Like, you wouldn't, if you were Kerry, you wouldn't want them to know that David Moran is injured, because then they'll try and attack that. The same with Neil McGee. They'll try and get at them. They're weak there. So it's just about them not knowing your team more than anything. Like, it used to be a case of you could trick them. Now you don't trick them, but you still don't want them to know. Maybe it should be.
Maybe what Dublin do is the right thing. Release their team an hour beforehand, and that's it. You look at.
Yeah, but it has to be. It has to be official there before it starts in the program.
Yeah, you look at soccer there, for instance, and they all name their team an hour before kick off, and that's it. Yeah, and maybe that's the way forward for teams.
So in soccer, we've all gone to soccer games, so this is what Declan Bonner wants. I think we should go with squad numbers. We name a squad by late Wednesday evening for Thursday morning, and we lost 2 key players, whatever. So if you go with squad numbers, you have your 26 squad, or maybe your 30 squad members in the programme.
Yeah.
And that's it. There's no team named in the programme. And then an hour before the kickoff, like soccer, you name your official team, and that's your team. Yeah. Now, so that gives an hour. So you'd be doing, like, unless the opposition management is listening in and making last minute preparations, if that's the case, well, then you can do the same thing. You know what I mean? At that stage. That's definitely a solution to this charade. Like with the game on Sunday, we're up in the press box going, what are the changes? And Alan Milton's coming down to us saying, I was down there and he's in for him and you're scribbling player. It's a load of nonsense. Name your bloody team an hour before the game. And that's if you go with squads. So the old traditional programme, which I would miss that, is having the team named in the programme. I know that I'm a traditionalist with stuff like that. It would be a shock for people buying a program to just see a list of panel. That means nothing to anyone, really.
But that's the soccer programs that you see is the squad numbers now, and that's it. And I don't think, going to your point, Conan, a manager shouldn't have to make people or his opponents aware of exactly what way he's going to line out. He doesn't have to be under that type of pressure. So an hour beforehand should be the way forward, and that's it.
Yeah, there is another solution. So, like, I mean, I think it was Billy Sheehan I originally saw with this solution, and that is you name your team on the Thursday or the Friday morning in time just to get into the programme, right? And any changes, now, so you've all your training done by then. So it's really a freak occurrence if you've done your Tuesday, Thursday nights. Yeah. So and on a Friday night before a match, Saturday or Sunday, you'd be kicking around anyway, you'd be doing nothing. It'd be very unlucky, very unusual for that to happen. So you name your team on the Friday morning, early. That's your official team. If you make any changes to that team in the meantime, that's a sub gone. Yeah. I think that's a good one too, because that would completely disincentivise them to do it. So you make your 3 changes. Now you're down. You've got 3 subs.
Yeah, I wouldn't make it a sub, but it would make it if, say, you take Neil McGee out, he can't play. He can't be on the bench anymore, even, so he's gone. It's not a sub that's made sort of in game, but it means that he's not an option anymore.
No longer an option.
So you wouldn't mess around with that. So
it has to be in
subs.
Yeah, you could lose them as subs, but you don't like the one of if you make 3 changes to that, then you're using your subs up at that stage.
Yeah, but I think that a lot of the time, a manager is mulling over maybe one or two positions, and he's trying to decide between 2 or 3 players, and on Thursday night he might have an opinion, put Conan in, but then by Saturday morning he says maybe Conan's not the right man for the job, and that
oh God, heartbreaking. You're bringing back memories here.
But that could be the case, and the more time manager has to think about it, the more scenarios are thrown into his head, and he maybe weighs things up a wee bit differently. So that's what has to be considered as well, and that's why I think an hour beforehand is the best way forward.
The only reason I don't like Billy Sheehan's one is just because players might genuinely get injured or sick. So, losing a sub for that's a bit harsh. But if they are injured, then they won't be part of your panel. So it's like, you told us they're injured, so they're not playing. If they come on, then the match is void or something.
Yeah. Okay, no, I'll take that. It's hard to know. I think maybe I'm falling down the sides of the squad numbers and an hour before. And there is an excitement an hour before. What's the team? You know what I mean?
Exactly,
that adds into it as well. Because the one thing that during the Super 8s, when the games are coming thick and fast, I do have sympathy on managers having to get a team in when they're trying to, get to grips with injuries, they're trying to get grips to form, and then they're having to release a team on the Thursday. That needs to change anyways. We're all in agreement that there has to be a better way to do it than that, now that the schedule has changed and that the games are coming so thick and fast. But I thought it was funny, Peter Keane was asked about not naming his subs. He says, I suppose it's difficult sometimes when it's my first year into it. Next thing you're seeing somebody else and they're only firing out 15. He's talking about Declan Bonner. You're saying, Jesus, I'm throwing out everything to some fella. Can I ask you a question? When did you see the Donegal team, was the question he asked back to a journalist asking him. It's mad, isn't it? Like, it sounds so juvenile. Well, they're doing it, so we'll do it. Like, I mean, it does sound juvenile, but this is the way these lads are thinking. Like, they don't want any sort of an advantage, even though I'm not sure it's an advantage to be given at all. Like, I mean, well, what are they doing? He's a grown man. This is a grown man, like Peter Keane. Like, I thought it was a good one. Will we give Shane Lowry a mention on the show here, lads? I avoided it on Monday because was wondering what the connection to GAA is. Obviously, his father in 1982, and I was thinking it's a GAA show. We're not going to start talking about golf on a GAA show, but there's enough of a connection because I saw a tweet from Owen Liston, the bomber. He said Shane Lowry paid us back in spades for all the hurt his father caused us in 1982. Now, I don't believe that for a second, but I can see where he's coming from. But obviously Shane is a big GAA man, obviously with Clara and with Offaly. So we have to wish him congratulations at the end of this show rather than the start of last one of the show. So congratulations to Shane. That was fantastic stuff. Poor Connor Sketches is a broken man after 3 days of following him around. Yeah, so we have him doing a video.
Yeah, well, I think he's put a feel-good factor throughout the country with his good fortune last week and coming through the Open. What a tremendous way to do it. He led from start to finish, and day by day really built momentum, and it was a brilliant finish by him.
I do think that whatever you say, you love Rory McIlroy. I love his style of play. I love the way he gets around, not particularly gone on him. Don't think I really enjoy his company all that much. Harrington is a bit of a mad thing as well, but I think Shane Lowry for GAA people is that he's one of our own.
He's one of
you know
our
what
own,
I mean? And that's probably where he's getting so much kind of love, is because he's one of our own, and I suppose that's probably the only way to say it.
He's the everyman.
He's the everyman, yeah. Okay, right, listen, that's all we've time for, lads. We did well enough today. We got close enough to the hour. We'll be back on, obviously there's no show on Monday, but we'll be back next Thursday. We'll preview the last round of, we'll be back next Wednesday actually, where we'll preview all the games except for Mayo Donegal, because we're in Westport, like I said, on the Thursday night. So yeah, we'll talk to you next Wednesday. Good luck.